Hello there, everybody. Welcome to Ask Dr. Bob. This is where you ask me, Dr. Bob Gabbay, the Chief Scientific and Medical Officer here at the American Diabetes Association, your questions. And if you are new to the program, welcome. If you're a longtime viewer, great to have you back. And you know that each month we pick a theme. And the theme this time is really about this major event that the American Diabetes Association had, and that was scientific sessions. And I'll tell you more about that in a moment. I also want to say, if you enjoy the program, please share with your friends and family and loved ones, and follow me on LinkedIn, where you can get lots of other good information about diabetes. So without further ado, let's jump into the questions. And so the first question is, really, what is this scientific sessions? And well, we had our 84th scientific session, so it gives you a sense of how long this has been going on. And it's sort of the biggest and most important diabetes meeting in the world, on so many different levels. Roughly 11,000 people. It's clinicians, scientists, researchers, industry, government organizations. I mean, just like anyone that cares about diabetes is there, and it's an opportunity for us to learn the cutting edge of what is being done and new research, and also to engage with each other, because a lot of times research and discoveries happen through people interactions, and people being able to collaborate, having conversations in the hallways. It's really a wonderful event, and really one of the highlights of the year for me. And I've been going to these, since the 80s, if you can imagine how long that it was. Well, so the next question is, what were some of the major themes? And first, I'll tell you, there are literally hundreds of presentations that are being given, and posters, and big exhibit hall and product theaters. There's so much going on. I'll do my best to try to give you sort of the high level. Here's what's going to be important for you to know more about. And I'll say that there are 5 themes. The first is around obesity. And I'll talk more about that in a moment, because that was some of the questions. The second is around technology in diabetes. The third, a number of presentations specific to type 1 diabetes. The fourth big theme was how to address health disparities, and this fits very much along with the American Diabetes Association's efforts to reduce health inequities. And then the fifth is around innovation. So let me, one of the questions is, what are some of the breakthroughs, and what's happening in the world of obesity? So let me just paint a picture here. Over the last 2 years, there's literally been an explosion in numbers of presentations around this topic. And each year over the last 2 years, there have been double the number of presentations, because there's so much happening in the world. And I would group the research being presented, and these are big clinical trials that are published in the most prestigious medical journals. They're released first at the ADA scientific sessions, and then available online for everybody to read. So what were some of the big things in the world of obesity? I'd put it into 2 categories. One is the current medications that we have, and some of the new effects it may have, the new benefits they may have, and I'll describe that in a moment. And the other big area is the number of new treatments under development. So there are literally 20 new clinical trials results being presented at scientific sessions on new treatments. Anything from, right now we have one hormone, GLP-1 receptor agonist, is sort of one of the most common medications, semaglutide. You might know it as Ozempic or Wegovy. That's one class of drugs. There's the dual GLP-1 and GIP. Those two hormones put together, that's what tirzepatide is. And you may know that as Mounjaro. Well, so this pipeline of new treatments where, well, if two hormones are good, what about three hormones? What about two different hormones? What about taking these injections and making them available as a tablet and not having to inject? What about having a once a month injection instead of once weekly? So a whole pipeline of new treatments there. So that was one big theme. The other big theme around obesity is new effects and new potential benefits of these drugs. And one which I would say was really exciting was around sleep apnea. Now, we often don't think about sleep apnea as a common problem, but it's very common for people with diabetes. There are about 80 million Americans that have sleep apnea. The current treatments are wearing a mask, a CPAP that you may be familiar with, and many people find uncomfortable and often don't use, or there are some surgical procedures. There's been no medical therapy for this. And so this study looked at these agents to be able to help in sleep apnea, and they reduced sleep apnea by about a half. So it was really effective and maybe a new treatment for sleep apnea. So that's one of the new uses. The other is the use of these GLP-1 medications to prevent progression of chronic kidney disease. Now, you might remember that diabetes is a leading cause of kidney disease in the US. It's one of the potential complications of diabetes. And what they reported was a significant decreased risk of kidney disease on these medications. That's on top of the effects we already know that they have in terms of helping with weight loss, improving blood glucose levels, and reducing cardiovascular disease. So lots of exciting work in the obesity field. Another question was, well, what about, type 1 diabetes, and what are some of the exciting things happening there? And I mentioned a few. First of all, something we often don't think about, but if you look at people living with type 1 diabetes, a third of them also live with obesity. So these obesity treatments are not only potentially for people with type 2 diabetes, but also for type 1. And there are a number of studies looking at the use of these medications for people with type 1 diabetes. The other big excitement in the type 1 diabetes world were the march towards a cure, to be able to develop cell-based therapy that could be transplanted into individuals, cells that produce insulin that could essentially normalize blood glucose. And there was a presentation that showed 7 out of 10 people in this very small clinical trial were able to stop their insulin for some months, and they're continuing to follow those people and look at larger numbers. Still needing immunosuppressive therapy, so that's the next hurdle to get over. And there are studies looking at how one might be able to do this type of therapy without having to require immunosuppressive therapy. And then the last interesting study I'd highlight around type 1 diabetes was the use of inhaled insulin in a little puffer. It sort of looks like an asthma puffer, if you've seen those. Puffs of insulin can be delivered instead of injecting, and it's absorbed much faster than the typical injection of insulin. And this was a study that compared a once-a-day injection of insulin with mealtime puffs to the usual therapy for people with type 1 diabetes. That might be multiple insulin injections or insulin pumps or things like that. And they were relatively similar. And so I think inhaled insulin is going to be an interesting area to follow as well. And then one other sort of issue that came up is a question about technology. And, technology has really transformed diabetes care. There's a lot of presentations around continuous glucose monitors. And some of that were around the sort of health disparities associated with their use. Often they're not prescribed to certain populations, and we need to address that in a number of ways. So that's one piece. And then the other was the use of continuous glucose monitors for people with type 2 diabetes, not on insulin. Because currently, it's not necessarily recommended for those individuals, but there were studies suggesting that they really could be beneficial. And you may know that in the last couple of months, there have been some continuous glucose monitors that have been approved by the FDA to be available over the counter without a prescription. They're a little different than the current continuous glucose monitors, but the idea is that it may be even helpful for people without diabetes. So stay tuned to that. Someone else asked about the innovation challenge, and I have to say, personally, this was one of the coolest parts of the meeting for me. What we did is we created this program where startup companies would apply to the ADA with their ideas, and we took out of this large number of applications a group that got up on stage and pitched their ideas to judges. Sort of similar to a TV program that involves a sort of predatory aquatic animal that swims and anyhow, I won't say what it is. This was a more gentle version, a dolphin tank. In any case, some really cool solutions. Cell-based therapy without immunosuppression, so like potential cure for type 1 diabetes. Another one of the winners was how to sort of plan a visit in advance, something you could fill out in advance of your visit that would clue your healthcare professional into what you needed to talk about and address with some suggestions of how they can help you and really streamline that visit, to a solution that solves something that happens occasionally. Insulin pumps malfunction, and that can be really problematic. And they figured out a way to be able to tell really early on if the pump was not working. So a really innovative solution. So cool innovation in the startup world to help people living with diabetes. So lots of exciting things. Someone says, okay, so this year's over. What about next year's scientific session, the 85th scientific session? It'll be in Chicago next year. What am I looking forward to there? I think what we'll continue to see is more work in the obesity world. These new medications are really a game changer. The hope is as more choices become available, it will also make it easier to access these treatments that can be so beneficial for people. So I think that's going to be one big theme. And then I think that this idea of cell-based therapy, beta cell replacement therapy, a potential cure for diabetes, we'll see more progress there undoubtedly, and I'm looking forward to that as well. So finally, where can you get more information? And I would suggest you go to the American Diabetes Association website, diabetes.org. You can look at past meetings and things that were presented there. There's lots of information there about the meeting and also just how to live healthier with diabetes. So covered a lot of ground. It was an amazing meeting. Maybe some of you will see you in Chicago next year at next year's meeting. In the meantime, if you enjoy the show, tell others, follow me on LinkedIn, and thank you so much for joining. and take care of yourself.